Today's reading is called Silence and God's Call. That evening, after sunset, the people brought to Jesus all who were ill and demon-possessed. The whole town gathered at the door, and Jesus healed many who had various diseases. He also drove out many demons, but he would not let the demons speak because they knew who he was. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Simon and his companions went to look for him, and when they found him, they exclaimed, "Everyone is looking for you." Jesus' words in the New Testament are a great gift to us. They speak to us, teach us, challenge us, and uplift us. We are, however, not merely called to listen to his words, but also to live his life. Again and again in the Gospels we are told, almost in passing, that Jesus withdrew to be alone and to be with God. His times of reflection, prayer, and silence can teach us as much as the words and actions that they bookend. In a song entitled God's Blog, Jim Bob, former frontman of the 1990s rock band Carter USM, describes God's deep sadness at witnessing the terrible ways that people are treating each other. God is tempted to just delete everybody, but then he glances down and sees the first steps of a child, a beautiful sunrise, a random act of kindness, and a borrowed phrase from French composer Claude Debussy, the space between the notes. That phrase is intriguing. There's something quite beautiful about the idea. Most of us connect with uplifting melodies, but what we don't necessarily realize is that the silence between the notes is just as important as the notes themselves. If a piano was played without any spaces between the notes, we would not have music. It would be simply noise. This, of course, is the same for our lives. Communication, discussion, and speaking out against injustice and hatred are all part of our call as Christians. But we also need times of silence, reflection, and prayer. We need space between the notes, otherwise we end up just noise. Silence, though, is all too often neglected in the contemporary world we walk, quite rightly, about the importance of being heard. Silence, though it is all often neglected in the contemporary world, we talk, quite rightly, about the importance of being heard, having a voice and speaking our mind. But silence and reflection are rarely championed. My dad would often quote an old Welsh saying to me as a child, "Let the wise be silent, for the foolish will not." In today's world, our lifestyles make silence difficult. Social media contributes to the noise in our lives, as we feel we have to tell the world of our innermost thoughts, or we constantly check on what others are posting. The beauty of stillness and silence is too often underappreciated. Embracing the space between the notes allows us to step outside the hustle and bustle of this world and recharge our batteries. More than that, doing so opens ourselves to God's voice in our lives, so that still, small voice of calm, as the hymn, Dear Lord and Father, puts it. After all, in the Old Testament, Elijah did not find God in the great and powerful wind, nor in the earthquake, nor in the fire. God was found in the gentle whisper, the still, small voice of calm. When we take time in silence to listen to God's voice, then we start to be transformed by his call. Desmond Tutu describes connecting with God in silence as similar to sitting next to a fire on a cold day. We don't have to do anything. We just feel the warmth and we just somehow take on the attributes of the fire. The fire is warm, so we become warm. Likewise, we don't need to do anything when we take time for silence with God. We just need to feel his presence, and somehow we take on the attributes of God. God is love, so we become more like God, less judgmental and more loving. Then when we leave that silence to speak and act, we speak and act out of wisdom, peace, and love. The reflection for today: Very simply, just take some time out today to be still, to be silent, to be with God, to listen to Him. Take time to experience and explore the space between the notes. Ask God in this silence to begin to transform you into His image. Ask that by sitting in His presence, you take on His attributes and become more loving and compassionate.